And so by refusal to pick up the weapons of your accusers, you die at the hands of your accusers. And you had the power to stop it. That's not cowardice. That's Calvary. And that, I think, is a misunderstanding on our part of what the cross is doing. It's bringing us into the conformability of His death, where we die as Christ, where Christ died, to, what are we dying to? We're dying to our rights and our needs to fight back, to defend the indefensible, to use the same weaponry on our enemy that our enemy uses on us. And only when we get to that point are we really where Peter is. Lord, I'll die with you. And church tradition tells us that in the mid-60s AD, Peter died. And the early church fathers wrote that Peter died crucified upside down. Because once he was convicted to death to be put on a cross, the early church fathers wrote that Peter requested to be crucified upside down. He said, for I'm not worthy to be crucified in the same manner as my Lord. Now, whether that happened that way or not, we can't be for sure. But Peter dies in the same manner as Jesus and doesn't swing the sword to get there. So it took a whole generation for Peter to learn that lesson, but he did learn it indeed. Let me start with this thought today. Where is the crucifixion? Where the crucifixion occurred is actually what I meant to say there. Where the crucifixion occurred gives us a clue as to why the crucifixion occurred. So imagine underline where, underline why, underline what. Where it occurred gives us a clue as to why it occurred, which leads us to what it means for those who find it. If we find the X, find the cross, and that's our journey tonight. If we find the cross that marks the spot, it's at that spot that we learn something about the death of Christ and subsequently our death. So where it happens gives us a clue as to why it happens, and let me just get a couple of them out of the way. One, we know that it happens at a place called Golgotha. You could do a good sermon on what it means to die at Golgotha. Golgotha, a compound, many believe, of two old words, Goliath of Gath. And Hebrew tradition says that the head of Goliath, where David cut off Goliath's head, that the head of Goliath was buried on a hill called Golgotha, Goliath of Gath, and that Jesus then goes to Golgotha and is crucified at Golgotha. And a great sermon you could preach out of that is that by dying on that hill, Jesus conquers the place of the skull. Christ becomes the victor, the David 2.0. He defeats your giant. He goes to the cross to beat up whatever giant is trying to beat you up. Great sermon, not an inappropriate place to land at all, I don't think, with Golgotha. It's something you can do with it. So geographically, you could preach Golgotha. You could preach the hill, because the Bible repeats it over and again that he dies on the hill. He dies on a hill. And he doesn't die in a valley. And there's a reason for that. Because the cross becomes the place that we ascend up, not the place that we go down. That our call to follow Jesus with our cross is an ascent upward into his goodness, into his grace, into his provision, so that whatever we pick up and heft in our lives, whether it's our future death or whether it's our burden, whether it's our physical sickness, whether it's whatever it is we carry, whether it's up here, it's down here, it's on our back, whatever it is, we pick it up and we go uphill with it as a way of honoring our God, so that our death isn't some downward spiral into the darkest valley, but an ascent up into the clouds, an ascent up into the goodness of God. And so the fact that the cross happens on a hill becomes significant.